Hi all, this is my video explaining the format of the test that you will be taking next week. Now, there are 3 parts to the test, and this matches up with what I explained before, but I'm going to go over it to make sure you understand it. So in the first section, there will be 9 quotes. You have to answer all 9 or identify all 9 of these quotes. So you simply read the quote and you say what theorist wrote that quote. You do not need to explain it. You're simply saying, I don't know, for example, Alexis de Tocqueville, he's the one who wrote this quote. You either get credit for that one or you don't get credit. Second section, short answer. So here I'm going to give you 7 short answer questions. You are going to get to choose 4 of them. So you do have some flexibility here. Choose the 4 that you think you will do best on. Doesn't matter which 4 you chose. Each of these will be more direct. So in these type of questions, I'll say something like, explain this concept. Or does this theorist believe X? Why? Right? So you have to, in 3 to 4 sentences, answer the question directly. There's not much application or really any application. It's simply, do you understand these fundamental ideas from the first part of the semester? The third part of the test is the essay. You get 3 essay questions. You only have to answer 1. So you do have flexibility here as well. This counts for 15 points. So the first section is 9 points total. Second section is 16 points total. Third section is 15 points total. For the essay, this is where you have to compare and contrast multiple theorists. So usually 2 theorists or potentially 3 theorists, but usually 2 theorists. And you have to apply it to some sort of contemporary example, right? So explain their ideas like you would in the short answer section, but also apply it to something else. Apply it to example. Basically the type of stuff you're doing in those making connection posts. Now, for this test, it is open notebook. It technically is open book as well. The reason I say no book is if you're going through your book during this test, you're simply going to run out of time, right? Now, maybe if in your notes you say, make sure to look at page 32 for this concept, you could get away with that. But generally, you don't want to be opening your book because there's just not enough time to be learning it again, and you don't need to be quoting the book directly. So it's not that useful. Instead, make sure you have a sense of where things are in your notes and make sure they all make sense to you. So you can draw on your notes for this test. The other thing, like I've said multiple times in class, make sure you're trying to figure out the underlying logic when studying. That makes it easier. It's not about memorizing every concept. It's not about reading over the text multiple times to the point that you have every single quote identified. That's not the goal. Instead, it's saying, what are the central questions these theorists are asking? What problems do they identify in society, right? Because they're each trying to identify here's some of the challenges, here's the potentials for progress. So what are they identifying, and then where do they take the essay? You have 2 options in terms of format of the test. You can take it in the classroom. If you're taking it in the classroom, you need to bring a laptop, or you can ask me for one of those blue books that you take essay exams. Tell me in advance. I'm not planning on bringing blue books because most of you type a lot faster than you write. If you prefer that, I'm happy to bring it to the classroom. So the other thing is, if you don't have a laptop and you need one, I could let someone borrow mine. But again, let me know in advance so I can plan ahead. Probably not ideal. It should be a laptop that you're used to, but you could use mine if necessary. The other option is to take this at home or wherever you feel comfortable, library, home, whatever works for you. You'll have the exact amount of time, so I will email out the test exactly when class starts, and then you have to submit it on Blackboard by the time class ends. Initially, I was going to give you about 15 extra minutes. That's not really fair because some of you have to run off to another class. So it's not, I don't want to make it so that people who don't have a class after have an advantage over people who do. That wasn't your choice. And then the final thing that I'll say related to the format is I will have Teams open during the test. So if you're in person, you can simply raise your hand, ask me a question. If you're on Teams, via the standard link, you can say, hey, this question doesn't make sense. I'm hoping that isn't the case. I've already explained the format, so you shouldn't have that many questions, but there's always something that comes up, so that is an option. In terms of the theorists that you need to know, everyone from the first part of the semester. So we've got Thomas Hobbes, Immanuel Kant, Patricia Hill Collins, Alexis de Tocqueville, Karl Marx, and Pierre Bourdieu. That was actually pretty bad pronunciation, Pierre Bourdieu. The other thing that you could know, but is not required, there is one short answer question that directly relates to the Ta-Nehisi Coates podcast that you listened to, or it was a podcast on Ta-Nehisi Coates where his friend is talking to him. You only have to answer 4 out of 7 short answer questions. If you did not listen to that podcast, you don't need to now. If you did listen to that podcast, I wanted to reward you because you took the time to do so and we didn't talk about it in class. The question is relatively easy, but again, you have flexibility in that section. 7 questions, you have to answer 4. Don't feel like you need to listen to that podcast now. If you do listen to it, it really helps us understand the ideas of Pierre Bourdieu, especially cultural habitus and habitus and cultural capital. So if you know how cultural capital and habitus could apply to the Ta-Nehisi Coates podcast, you're in good shape. Here's some example of what the sections will look like. Now, again, we're going to go over this during the study day. We're going to actually answer these together. But here's some examples. With the quote, you simply identify who wrote it, right? You read the quote and say, what is a theorist who would have had this in a reading that we did this part of the semester? Now, again, I don't want you to get to the point. It's amazing if you do, but you do not need to get to the point where you look at the quote and remember exactly where it was in the reading. That's not the purpose. Instead, if you have a general sense of what each theorist argued, then you should be able to recognize the quote. So I only choose quotes that directly relate to a central concept from that theorist. Marx talks about species being. He's the only theorist who talks about it. So that first quote is Marx because you recognize it's about work, it's about human nature, and it's about species being. So it has to be Marx. The second quote you won't get, it's from Adam Smith. I just wanted to include some more examples. Short answers. Again, these directly tell you to do something, right? Question 1. What does Marx mean when he states that capitalism is by its very nature naked and global? 3 to 4 sentences answering this question. Probably 2 sentences explaining what he means by naked, 2 by global. You might even be able to answer this one in 2 sentences. It would be a little bit difficult to get full credit, but it's possible. So I'm directly saying what I want you to do. Example of something a little bit different, the 4th question here. Here I'm telling you, hey, here Hobbes gave us this quote, put it in your own language, right? Tell me what it means. Again, 3 to 4 sentences, not anything that long. If you're writing a whole essay on it, you're going to run out of time and you don't need that for full credit. We'll go over what a full credit answer looks like when we're in class this coming week for the study session. And then the essay. Again, for the essay, you have to generally compare 2 theorists, sometimes 3 theorists, and then apply them to a contemporary example. So for the first one, for actually both of these, I chose theorists that are not appearing on this test. We didn't read Norbert Elias yet. We didn't read Emil Durkheim yet. But these are the type of questions that you would have, right? Explain how they have similar but different ideas, and then how is it useful in thinking about the contemporary or modern world, right? That's what you're going to be doing in the essay. Going beyond just understanding to also demonstrating application. So that's the format of the test. Make sure to think about this a little bit. Make sure you've been studying and come up with questions for me. I'm happy to answer anything that would be useful.